Good evening, everyone. I'm here. Welcome to another reading of 1001 Nights, including Miss Button, who's been sitting on my reading chair. All right. Let me see how I can do that. The music in the background, by the way, is by Kamyab Sadiri. Hi everyone, there's my little sleepy cat. Okay. So, that was it. I hope you're all doing well and that you had a marvelous day. I know regardless where you are located in the world, I know some of us are extremely tired. Count me in today. I hope the cat can bring you some joy, and me too. And I'll be reading for you another story of 1001 Nights. And yeah, enjoy. Now when it was the 276th night, she said, "It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that Abdullah bin Abi Kilaba continued, I dismounted and hobbling my dromedary and composing my mind, entered into the city. Now when I came to the castle, I found it had 2 vast gates. Never in the world was seen their like for size and height, inlaid with all manner jewels and jacinths, white and red, yellow and green. Beholding this, I marvelled with great marvel, and thought the case mighty wondrous. Then, entering the citadel in a flutter of fear and dazed with surprise and affright, I found it long and wide, about equalling Al-Medina in point of size. And therein were lofty palaces, laid out in pavilions, all built of gold and silver, and inlaid with many-coloured jewels and jacinths, and chrysolites, and pearls. And the door leaves in the pavilions were like those of the castle for beauty. And the floors were strewn with great pearls and balls, no smaller than hazelnuts, of musk and ambergris and saffron. Now when I came within the heart of the city, and saw therein no created beings of the sons of Adam. Leaving? Sorry. I was near swooning and dying for fear. Moreover, I looked down from the great roofs of the pavilion chambers and their balconies, and saw rivers running under them. And in the main streets were fruit-laden trees and tall palms. And the manner of the building was one brick of gold and one of silver. So I said to myself, doubtless this is the paradise promised for the world to come. Then I loaded me with the jewels of its gravel and the musk of its dust, as much as I could carry, and returned to my own country, where I told the folk what I had seen. After a time, the news reached Muawiyah, son of Abu Sufyan, who was then Caliph in Al-Hijaz. So he wrote to his lieutenant in Sana'a of Al-Yaman to send for the teller of the story and question him of the truth of the case. Excuse me. Accordingly, the lieutenant summoned me and questioned me of my adventure and of all appertaining to it, and I told him what I had seen. Whereupon he dispatched me to Muawiyah, before whom I repeated the story of the strange sights, but he would not credit it. So I brought out to him some of the pearls and balls of musk and ambergris and saffron, in which latter there was still some sweet savour, but the pearls were grown yellow and had lost pearly colour. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of day and ceased saying her permitted say. Now when it was the 277th night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that Abdullah, son of Abu Kilaba, continued, but the pearls were grown yellow and had lost pearly colour. Now Muawiyah wondered at this, and sending for Ka'b al-Ahbar said to him, O Ka'b, I have sent for thee to ascertain the truth of a certain matter, and hope that thou wilt be able to certify me thereof. Asked Ka'b, What is it, O Commander of the Faithful? And Muawiyah answered, Wottest thou of any city founded by man, which is builded of gold and silver, the pillars whereof are of chrysolite and rubies, and its gravel pearls and balls of musk and ambergris and saffron? He replied, Yes, O Commander of the Faithful. This is Iram, with pillars decked and dight, the like of which was never made in the lands, and the builder was Shaddad, son of Ad the Great. Quoth the Caliph, Tell us something of its history. And Ka'b said, Ad the Greater had two sons, Shadid and Shaddad, who, when their father died, ruled conjointly in his stead. And there was no king of the kings of the earth, but was subject to them. After a while Shadid died, and his brother Shaddad reigned over the earth alone. Now he was fond of reading in antique books, and happening upon the description of the world to come, and of paradise, with its pavilions and galleries, and trees and fruits and so forth, his soul moved him to build the like thereof in this world, after the fashion aforesaid. Now under his hand were 100,000 kings, each ruling over 100,000 chiefs, commanding each 100,000 warriors. So he called these all before him and said to them, I find in ancient books and annals a description of paradise, as it is to be in the next world, and I desire to build me its like in this world. Go ye forth Wherefore to the goodliest tract on earth, and the most spacious, and build me there a city of gold and silver, whose gravel shall be chrysolite, and rubies, and pearls, and for support of its vaults make pillars of jasper. Fill it with palaces, whereon ye shall set galleries and balconies, and plant its lanes and thoroughfares with all manner trees bearing yellow ripe fruits, and make rivers to run through it in channels of gold and silver. Whereat said one and all, How are we able to do this thing thou hast commanded? And whence shall we get the chrysolites and rubies and pearls whereof thou speakest? Quoth he, What? Read ye not that the kings of the world are subject to me and under my hand, and that none therein dare gainsay my word? Answered they, Yes, we know that. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of day and ceased to say her permitted say. Excuse me. Now when it was the 278th night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that the lieges answered, Yes, we know that. Whereupon the king rejoined, Fare ye then to the mines of chrysolites and rubies and pearls and gold and silver, and collect the produce and gather together all of value that is in the world, and spare no pains, and leave naught, and take also for me such of these things as be in man's hand, and let nothing escape you. Be diligent and beware of disobedience. And thereupon he wrote letters to all the kings of the world, and bade them gather together whatso of these things was in their subjects' hands, and get them to the mines of precious stones and metals, and bring forth all that was therein, even from the abysses of the sea. This they accomplished in the space of 20 years, for the number of rulers then reigning over the earth was 360 kings. And Shaddad presently assembled from all lands and countries architects and engineers, and men of art and labourers, and handicraftsmen who dispersed over the world, and explored all the wastes and walls, and tracts and halls. At last they came to an uninhabited spot, a vast and fair open plain, clear of sandhills and mountains, with founts flushing and rivers rushing. And they said, This is the manner of place the king commanded us to seek and ordered us to find. So they busied themselves in building the city, even as bade them Shaddad, king of the whole earth, in its length and breadth, leading the fountains and channels, and laying the foundation after the prescribed fashion. Moreover, all the king of earth's several reigns sent thither jewels and precious stones, and pearls large and small, and carnelian and refined gold, and virgin silver upon camels by land, and in great ships over the waters, and there came to the builders' hands of all these materials so great a quantity as may neither be told, nor counted, nor conceived. So they laboured at the work 300 years, and when they had brought it to end, they went to King Shaddad and acquainted him therewith. Then said he, "Depart and make thereon an impregnable castle, rising and towering high in air, and build around it 1,000 pavilions, each upon 1,000 columns of chrysolite and ruby, and vaulted with gold, that in each pavilion a vizier may dwell." So they returned forthwith, and did this in other 20 years, after which they again presented themselves before King Shaddad and informed him of the accomplishment of his will. Then he commanded his viziers, who were 1,000 in number, and his chief officers, and such of his troops and others as he put trust in, to prepare for departure and removal to many-columned Iram, in the suite and at the stirrup of Shaddad, son of Ad, king of the world. And he bade also such as he would of his women and his harem, and of his handmaids and eunuchs, make them ready for the journey. They spent 20 years in preparing for departure, at the end of which time Shaddad set out with his host. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of day, and ceased saying her permitted say. Now when it was the 279th night, she said, "It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that Shaddad bin Ad fared forth, he and his host, rejoicing in the attainment of his desire, till there remained but 1 day's journey between him and Iram of the Pillars. Then Allah sent down on him and on the stubborn unbelievers with him a mighty rushing sound from the heavens of his power, which destroyed them all with its vehement clamour, and neither Shaddad nor any of his company set eyes on the city. Moreover, Allah blotted out the road which led to the city, and it stands in its stead, unchanged until the resurrection day and the hour of judgment." So Muawiyah wondered greatly at Ka'b al-Ahbar's story, and said to him, "Hath any mortal ever made his way to that city?" He replied, "Yes, one of the companions of Muhammad, on whom be blessing and peace, reached it, doubtless and for sure after the same fashion as this man here seated." And quoth Al-Sha'abi, "It is related on the authority of learned men of Himyar in Al-Yaman, that Shaddad, when destroyed with all his host by the sound, was succeeded in his kingship by his son, Shaddad the Less, whom he left vice-regent in Hazramut and Sabah, when he and his marched upon many-columned Iran. Now as soon as he heard of his father's death on the road, he caused his body to be brought back from the desert to Hazramut, and bade them hew him out a tomb in a cave, where he laid the body on a throne of gold, and threw offer the corpse 70 robes of cloth of gold, purfled with precious stones. Lastly, at his sire's head he set up a tablet of gold, whereon were graven these verses: "Take warning, O proud, I'm Shaddad, son of Ad, lord of pillars and power, whom all earth's sons obeyed, and who held east and west. He preached me salvation, but we crossed him and asked, when a cry on us cried, and we fell on the field, and the fixed day await. And in length, O life vain, of the forts Castellane, lord of tried might and main, for my mischief and bane, In mine awfullest reign, whom God did assain, can no refuge be taken? From the horizon plain, like the harvested grain, we in earth's bosom lain. Al-Sa'alibi also related, it chanced that two men once entered this cave and found steps at its upper end. So they descended and came to an underground chamber 100 cubits long by 40 wide and 100 high. In the midst stood a throne of gold, whereon lay a man of huge bulk, filling the whole length and breadth of the throne. He was covered with jewels and raiment, gold and silver wrought, and at his head was a tablet of gold bearing an inscription. So they took the tablet and carried it off, together with as many bars of gold and silver and so forth as they could bear away. And men also relate the tale of Isaac of Mosul. Quoth Isaac of Mosul, I went out one night from Al-Mamun's presence on my way to my house, and being taken with a pressing need to make water, I turned aside into a by-street and stood in the middle, fearing lest something might hurt me if I squatted against the wall. Presently I espied something hanging down from one of the houses. So I felt it to find out what it might be, and found that it was a great 4-handled basket covered with brocade. Said I to myself, there must be some reason for this, and knew not what to think. Then drunkenness led me to seat myself in the basket, and behold, the people of the house pulled me up, thinking me to be the person they expected. Now when I came to the top of the wall, lo, 4 damsels were there, who said to me, descend and welcome and joy to thee. Then one of them went before me with a wax candle, and brought me down into a mansion, wherein were furnished sitting chambers, whose like I had never seen, save in the palace of the Caliphate. So I sat down, and after a while the curtains were suddenly drawn from one side of the room, and behold, in came damsels walking in procession, and handing in hand lighted flambeaux of wax, and censers full of Sumatran aloes wood, and amongst them a young lady as she were the rising full moon. So I stood up to her, and she said, welcome to thee for a visitor. And then she made me sit down again, and asked me how I came thither. Quoth I was returning home from the house of an intimate friend, and went astray in the dark. Then, being taken in the street with an urgent call to make water, I turned aside into this lane, where I found a basket let down. The strong wine which I had drunk led me to seat myself in it, and it was drawn up with me into this house, and this is my story. She rejoined, no harm shall befall thee, and I hope thou wilt have cause to praise the issue of thine adventure. Then she added, but what is thy condition? I said, a merchant in the Baghdad bazaar. And she, canst thou repeat any verses? Some small matter, quoth I. Quoth she, then call a few to mind, and let us hear some of them. But I said, a visitor is bashful and timid. Do thou begin. True, replied she, and recited some verses of the poets, past and present, choosing the choicest pieces, and I listened not knowing whether more to marvel at her beauty and loveliness, or at the charm of her style of declamation. Then said she, "Is that bashfulness of thine gone?" And I said, "Yes, by Allah." So she rejoined, "Then, if thou wilt, recite us somewhat." So I repeated to her a number of poems by old writers, and she applauded, saying, "By Allah, I did not think to find such culture among the trade folk, the sons of the bazaar." Then she called for food, whereupon quoth Shahrazad's sister, Dunyazad, "How pleasant is this tale, and enjoyable, and sweet to the ear, and sound to the sense." But she answered, "And what is this story compared with that which thou shalt hear on the morrow's night, if I be alive, and the king deign spare me?" Then Shahrazad perceived the dawn of day, and ceased saying her permitted say. I hope you enjoyed the reading. She did. Lady Button. I wish you a wonderful night, sweet dreams, peaceful days. I hope wherever you are, the sun is shining, at least during the day. And as usual, remember to go inwards instead of outwards. I send you much love. I wish I could turn this off from over here. It's not gonna work. She is the queen of my castle, let me tell you that. You want to say bye? Come on, say goodnight to everyone. They've been so precious, haven't they? Good night, loves. Nighty-night. Nighty-night from Lady Button. And I will see you on Thursday. Bye, everyone.